Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're doing something a little different. We're stepping away from our usual topics to talk about something that just lives quietly, heavily in the shadows of the human mind. It's a psychological phenomenon that's incredibly common, but literally no one talks about it: the fear of the therapist's chair. We're going to explore the dark psychology of why people are utterly terrified to ask for help, even when they know, deep down, they're drowning. Let's step into the dark.
You know something's wrong. You've known it for months. Honestly, maybe you've known it for years, and yet you just will not go to therapy. And it's not because you can't find a therapist. It's not because you can't afford it. It's because something deeper, something that feels almost physical right in your chest, stops you dead in your tracks every single time your finger hovers over that call button. You find a reason to put the phone down, right? You promise yourself you'll do it tomorrow, but tomorrow never comes. Today, we're going to name exactly what that feeling is, because understanding the absolute terror behind this paralysis is the only way to break it. So we start with the alibis, the perfectly acceptable excuses you tell yourself and really everyone around you. The cost, the lack of availability, finding the right fit, or just the excruciating, skin-crawling awkwardness of sitting down with a total stranger and trying to summarize your entire life. Look, let me be absolutely clear, these are legitimate hurdles. Therapy is expensive, and the healthcare system is deeply flawed. But for most people who fiercely resist the couch, these practical concerns are kind of just a socially acceptable cover story. They act as a convenient, logical shield, masking a terror that goes far, far deeper than your wallet or your calendar. Which brings us to a deeply ingrained cultural myth. It's a lie we are fed practically from birth. This idea that real strength means enduring alone. We live in a world where, despite all these endless mental health awareness campaigns, the old stigma still has this suffocating grip on us. This is especially true in communities and families where strength is completely synonymous with absolute silence, where the unbreakable rule is that your problems are handled privately, behind locked doors. You carry this internalized, punishing voice that insists seeking help is a weakness, or worse, a direct act of disloyalty to your family's unwritten rules. To that voice, therapy isn't healing. It's a catastrophic admission of total failure. And here is where the terror becomes incredibly intimate. You see, therapy demands something you have likely spent your entire life aggressively avoiding: being fully, uncomfortably seen. It doesn't want the edited, highly managed, socially acceptable version of you that goes to work, smiles at dinners, and pretends everything is just fine. No, it demands the real you. It asks you to bring the thoughts you're profoundly ashamed of, the chaotic feelings you can't even explain, and the broken parts you've worked tirelessly to hide into a brightly lit room and show them to a complete stranger. For a lot of people, that level of exposure is infinitely more terrifying than the silent, lonely pain they're already sitting in.
But beneath that fear of being seen lies a much darker abyss. It's the fear of what I call the unforgivable truth. You harbor this profound, secret dread that if a trained professional actually looks closely at you, they're going to finally confirm the absolute worst things you secretly believe about yourself. That you're simply too broken to fix. That maybe your trauma isn't real enough to even warrant help. Or, and this is the most devastating, crushing thought of all, that you are the problem. That you're toxic. That you somehow deserved the terrible things that happened to you, and that no amount of talking is ever going to wash that away.
This deep-seated fear of being unforgivable, it doesn't just materialize out of nowhere. It's usually the direct result of childhood environments where your raw emotions were instantly dismissed, actively punished, or treated as something shameful. Think about it. If you grew up learning that crying just resulted in isolation or that your sadness was somehow an inconvenience to your parents, you learned really early on that your inner world was a bad place, a dangerous place. So naturally, the idea of bringing that hidden world to a professional feels like stepping into a trap. It triggers this primal fear that your deep childhood shame will finally be validated and made permanent by an expert. Which brings us to the ultimate unspoken barrier, the fear literally nobody talks about. I want you to ask yourself this terrifying question. If therapy actually works, what happens then? The answer to that question is what truly keeps people paralyzed. Because if therapy works, everything is going to change. Your relationships will inevitably shift, and honestly, some of them might not survive your new boundaries. Your tolerance for toxic situations and people, it's going to completely vanish. The coping mechanisms you've relied on just to survive, however destructive they might be, like drinking, withdrawing, or endless people-pleasing, they'll be stripped away. Change is a deeply terrifying prospect, even when you're changing away from agony. Why? Because the pain you're managing right now is familiar to you. You know the exact shape of it.
It's a dark, heavy blanket, sure, but it is your blanket. And for the human brain, familiar pain simply feels safer than the vast, unpredictable unknown of healing. Who even are you if you're no longer the one quietly suffering?
This dread of the unknown leads directly into a very real, very dangerous phenomenon known as emotional flooding. You carry this profound fear that going to therapy is going to blow the hinges off doors you've spent decades desperately keeping shut. You fear that examining the infected wound is only going to spread the infection. You probably believe that, right now, you're barely holding it together, and once the dark contents of your mind are let out, you're not going to be able to put them back in the box. You're terrified you'll completely stop functioning in your day-to-day life. And I want to be incredibly clear with you here. Your fear is entirely valid. Poorly conducted therapy can actually re-traumatize. So your resistance? It isn't stubbornness. It's a fierce, primal, protective instinct that is just trying to keep you alive.
But we have to separate that protective instinct from the cultural myth. Most people who fear therapy have been fed this cinematic lie. The image of a cold, clinical professional silently judging you from a notepad while you lie on a couch feeling smaller than ever. But the reality of properly conducted therapy is entirely different. It's a safe, non-judgmental container. It's an environment specifically engineered to hold the crushing, suffocating weight of everything you've been forced to carry alone. A good therapist isn't there to dissect you. They're there to help you carry the load.
The therapist's chair is not an interrogation spotlight. It's not a place where you're broken down or exposed for ridicule. It is a place where you are allowed to be exactly as broken as you already are. No masks, no apologies, just the profound experience of being fully heard by someone who is trained to listen without judgment. It's a space of calm, human recognition where your inner world is finally treated with the exact reverence and seriousness it has always deserved.
Your fear of that chair isn't irrational. It makes complete, undeniable sense given everything you've been taught about strength, vulnerability, and what it supposedly means to need help. But the agony you're managing all by yourself in the dark, that is also very real, and it is destroying you. You deserve support, not because you're weak, because you are human. You really don't have to carry this alone anymore.
So ask yourself, is the fear of what you might find in that chair truly worse than the pain of staying exactly where you are? If this explainer finally put into words what you've felt but never been able to admit, there's more waiting for you. We explored the forbidden psychology, the buried history, and the dark truths that dictate our lives from the shadows. The archive is open. Subscribe to Dark Archive and join us as we continue to uncover what lies beneath. Until next time, take care of yourself.